Debut of the Peg City Soundoff. Peg City, obviously being the city that I'm living in, the nickname for it. So tonight's guest, if I can set the stage for her a little bit, I'm going to go back to summer of 2018, going to a Social Distortion concert, who I never miss when they come through. They are also coming through this month. Out walks Jade Jackson to start the show in a mostly old school punk crowd. And out comes Jade Jackson and lays out something completely different than what most people, I think, were expecting to hear at a Social Distortion concert, and completely won the crowd over. Talked to some people after the first one, going to get a beer after, and everyone was saying the same thing. They're like, "Who was this girl? She was fantastic." And from that day, I've been a Jade Jackson fan. So Jade Jackson, American recording country musician, with us on the debut episode. So,
thank you for that.
So, why don't you tell us just a little about yourself?
Well, let's see. You saw me in 2018. I started touring in 2017, I think, or maybe even 16. It's kind of blurry to me now, everything like pre-COVID, but I started performing when I was 13, so that's back in the early 2000s, but I would just play locally because I was still in middle school and high school, and so I would just play, a couple miles from where I lived, and then ended up going to study music in college. And it was my junior year of college where I was sort of discovered by Mike Ness and contacted by him. And, then the story unfolds that he helped me get a record deal, and we made a couple records together, and I started touring like nationally and internationally for the first time.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, your 2 full-length albums and a new EP that just came out, and a couple singles, can be found on social media and other platforms. So let's maybe just kind of run through the albums here. Your first album, full-length one, Gilded. Obviously, my introduction to you after seeing you play was obviously Finish Line, which had a following. It seemed like if you go to the next album, Wilderness, Gilded may seem like a bit of a stripped down album. A couple of slower ones on it, but a great introduction to your voice, especially.
Thank you.
So between that and Wilderness, which Wilderness also holds my favorite, Loneliness is my favorite song.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Did you have a certain writing style change going between the two albums?
Well, not necessarily. I've always sort of written songs, not so much as like something where I was consciously like trying to write in a certain way. It was more so a therapy for me. So starting when I was 13, going into my teenage years and like adolescence, I was presented with like a lot of challenges, as most of us are as we're growing up. And I just use songwriting as an outlet to those changes in my own life. And so I think the biggest difference between writing for Gilded and writing for Wilderness was just where I was at in my life, but not necessarily a change up of style. I love folk music and real old country music. So I always wanted to put out a record more in that field. But since I was discovered by and mentored by Mike Ness, who's a punk rock legend, we sort of melded like my folk taste with his rock and roll taste to create the sound of both of those records, which I don't know, I guess how a record is produced can make you, you can produce a song so many different ways. So Mike decided to produce it with like a heavy rock and roll, like punk influence. And so I got categorized under like the Americana music or like, rock country. But if he would have decided to change up the instruments in like a different way, like I could have, been shelved or not shelved is a weird word as an artist. I mean, like you could have found me at a different place in the record store. Do you know what I mean? It's like my
Mhm.
songwriting is the constant, but how he chose to produce those records resulted in where they landed in the world as far as like genre.
Yeah, yeah. I think a song that really stands out on Gilded is "Troubled End." Um, the music of it, it sounds like that old school country rock vibe. Just has a great sound to it.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
and
That
then, don't go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna share that one's fun because that's actually a song I wrote when I was in a rockabilly band as a
Okay.
teenager. I was 15 when I wrote that song, and I demoed it with the three-piece band I was in. And so when I started working with Mike and showing him the new songs that I had written, he had recalled listening to this demo I made years ago and was curious about one of the songs, which was called at the time Trouble's End. It was more optimistic, and he kind of helped me rewrite it so that it would become something more ominous and, resulted in it being titled Troubled End. And he wrote one of the verses or rewrote one of the verses. And so that was like our first co-write. But the bones of the song was written far before I started working with him, which is kind of fun.
Okay. Anyone watching or who will be watching, if you're confused by Mike Ness is the vocalist frontman of Social Distortion. Obviously, when you listen to it, and especially when you listen to Social Distortion's Hard Times and Nursery Rhymes, you kind of get it a little bit too, right? That was an album of theirs that took on a little bit of a country rock vibe as well. So you can definitely hear the influence in it. So on Wilderness, your song "Ball It Up," higher energy song. On a personal level for myself, it actually inspired one of my band's songs based on just the energy of it.
Oh, wow.
After I heard it the first time, I thought I got to write something like that, and it's got to be kind of that country higher energy. And so anyway, I appreciate that. And so what I was going to get to with that though, bottle it up, and there's a couple other songs on that album that just have a more upbeat vibe. Is there? Did you have any influences when you were writing that maybe swayed you in that direction as well?
Well, I think it was mostly just that I was working with a band, like a full band ever since I recorded Gilded. Like one of the first things that I did when I got a record deal is like get a core group of guys together that would be like my touring band and my recording band. And so with Gilded, that was like a fresh thing for me. So the songs written for Gilded, my first record, were written without like rhythm in mind. When it came to writing for Wilderness, I had already toured and, played with a band for a few years. And so I think naturally I started writing with more of a rhythmic tendency, if that makes sense. Just having like
Yeah.
rehearsed a drummer and a bass player. And I kind of had that in my blood a little bit more. So some of the songs you'll find on that record were definitely more up tempo just because that's where I was at musically in my life.
Okay. And how about the newest EP out, Silent Wings? Some great writing on that. To just
Yeah.
to start there, it's a fantastic song. I was listening to it on my drive into the city last night here. So, just a couple just great songs that there's also come back on there. And then there's one song that stood out to me actually the first time I heard it, just being a kind of an older school fan of yours, Elevine. Very much like an older one of yours, No Guarantees.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I did this EP with a up and coming label, but they decided to not really we didn't do any they ended up not promoting it, so I haven't done really any interviews or press on this record, so I was kind of wondering, like, since I didn't have the opportunity to really do that, like, if there were going to be older fans of mine who knew Gilded well and knew that, the songs on that album well, that would then hear Elevine and have this question, and I guess I'll kind of explain to people who are like, "What are you even talking about?" There's a song on my first record, Gilded, called No Guarantees. And that song originally was brought into my band, my team, my producer as a song called Elevine. And it was one of my favorite songs that I'd ever written. And it was about a dear friend of mine. And it was just an important song to me. But I was young. I had just gotten signed. I was working with like these famous people. And so I didn't have the biggest voice when it came to making decisions about my songs. I really was just trusting Mike. And I think that he did an amazing job. And like, I owe him so much. And I'm not, downplaying that at all. I just, he's an artist. I'm an artist. He didn't think that Elevine should be in the song and encouraged me to rewrite it. And I, at the time, was like really wanting to keep Elevine in the song. And so it was a really hard spot for me to be in because I look up to Mike so much and I wanted to listen to his advice for that song. And I did. But after we recorded it and we were touring on that, I couldn't help but play No Guarantees and just think about Elevine all the time and think about, like, this is a song about her story and she's not even in the song, like, it just felt wrong, and I'm sure Mike would understand, so I've been sort of planning on re-recording that or just recording the original version of that for a while, and I decided to throw it on this EP because it was sort of a low pressure EP, and um, I thought it was time to bring her back into the world. But yeah, what were your thoughts? Did you think that I just, you know, was trying to get away with the same structure and chorus, or did you think
No,
story behind there?
no, and you know what? I'll be honest with you. The first time I listened to the EP, sat down, listened to it, and it came on, and it was funny for myself because I thought I know the song. Why do I know the song? And then I immediately first thing I thought it was a cover song. I'm like, well, who did the original? And then I was just so sure it was a song of yours. And I'm like, wait a minute, I got to go back here for a minute. And then I just pulled up the track listing of Gilded and saw No Guarantees. I'm like, that's the one. But you know what? I can't even give you an example right now, but I know people have done it in the past.
Oh, good. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I know it's like the further I go along in this, musical career on this path that I'm on, the more that I'm realizing that you can really do whatever you want. I was so timid and like fearful when I first, you know, got introduced to like the music business side of things, like first working with Mike, first getting a record deal. Like I was just like such a people pleaser at heart. Didn't think that I could really like voice my opinions or I might get kicked out of the club. You know what I mean? Like I was just
Mhm.
very like a quiet little mouse. And, you know, with the years and miles that I've put beneath my belt, I've discovered that I really could have been a little stronger in voicing my opinion the whole time. And I think that all the people I've worked with probably would have appreciated that because then they wouldn't have had to, carry all this weight, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
It's funny. The psychology behind it all is really interesting to me.
No, it's fantastic though. When I did hear it, it did throw me for a loop because I'm like, I just knew I'd heard the song before, so or, you know,
Yeah,
similarities of it. It's not note for note, it's not the same.
yeah, and you're the
But
only one who's ever asked me about it. I when I play it live, I do say, this song was called No Guarantees, the original version was Elevine, I decided to cut the original version. So, live audiences have heard this spiel, but I haven't, like, talked about it further than that.
well, we have the answer. That's phenomenal. Um, so another thing that I noticed, obviously, first thing you said when you got on here was talking about older music and folk music. You recently released on platforms "This Land Is Your Land," a Woody Guthrie song. Um, What made you want to record that as just a single?
Awesome. I'm always, like, so happy when people are like, "Oh, I heard this song of yours," and I was like, "Oh, I thought nobody's really listened to that." So, first of all, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. I loved recording that song. Um, I am sponsored by a fantastic, company. They're essentially like a beer company called 805 Brewing. It's a branch of Firestone Walker, and they've just been the greatest just friends and supporters over the years. 805 is my hometown area code, and so it was just kind of a great brand, I guess you'd say, to, like, partner up with, and part of, like, their sponsorship to me is, like, we do, like, little collaboration things together, and so they originally had brought up to me, the idea of doing a collaboration for the 4th of July, and they wanted to see if I could learn a patriotic song, uh, and I couldn't picture myself singing, like, "America the Beautiful" or something. I mean, that's a beautiful song, but I was just like, "How am I gonna do this?" Like, like, the national anthem is so hard to sing, like, what am I gonna do? And I was like, "Wait, what about This Land Is Your Land" by Woody Guthrie? Like, that's perfect because it's under the umbrella of, like, what they were searching for, but it's also just, like, this badass song that lyrically is, like, so poignant to what's going on right now. I was really excited. So I did a collaboration video with them for their marketing campaign, and then I just took the recording that we did for the live video and mixed and mastered it at home and put it out for the world.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent, excellent. It's a great song, and you did a great version of it.
thanks.
So you live in Nashville. You're originally from California, from what I remember.
Yep.
Shows coming up. I know you got a Nashville show coming up,
Yeah.
and I recently saw you were. This is kind of crazy. You were recently in Grand Forks, which is. I'm from Canada. Most of the viewers are actually going to be in Canada, I think. But Grand Forks is only about a 2 hour drive from here. So if it wasn't for a Tuesday work day, I'm sure I would have got a group of people to come down there. But you had something I just noticed. You had a little bit of a bird incident there.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I was sound checking and right next to I literally like a couple inches away from my head, a goose, like a can I say this on air? Took
Oh
a
yeah,
shit.
for
A
sure.
goose took a
Yeah,
shit on
yeah.
it, landed on my cords, and, like, it was nothing like your average like, California, like, pigeons, their droppings will land next to you, and it's disgusting, but, like, all my Californians who are listening to this, picture, like, 15 pigeons doing it at the same time, and then, like, that was disgusting, like, got all over my cords, all over my gear bag, but I was just so grateful that it didn't actually land on my head because 'cause I'd spent, like,
Mhm.
an hour blow drying my hair that day. I really woulda just had to, like, just roll with it because I didn't have that much time before I had to perform. I woulda just had goose shit in my hair, but yeah. Thanks for noticing.
Yeah. So what did a set a Jade Jackson set at the I believe you were playing at a park, right?
Yeah,
The park near
it was in the park, I guess you'd say, of this, like, beautiful museum,
mm,
venue. Yeah.
excellent. And what does a Jade Jackson set list look like now, keeping in mind when I saw you it was 2018 and you have released a bunch of music since then.
Yeah. So, I usually do a variety of sorts. I mean, this gig in North Dakota was an hour and a half, so I got to, pick a handful of songs from each project I've done, but
Mhm.
I have a shorter set, like a 20-minute set. I'll try and at least pull one song from Gilded, a song from, Wilderness, and then I did a collaboration record, with my friend Aubrey Sellers, so I usually play a couple songs off of that record, and then now off of my new EP. So it's a mixture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other shows, tours, plans coming up?
Well, I'm in a really transitional time right now. I am in the process of rebuilding a team around me.
Okay.
And so I've been really focusing on that. I know I just released this EP that was it's hopefully like bridging the gap until I really can get a big body of work out. Because I have the songs written, I have the ideas, I have the vision. It's just the business side of things have been pretty difficult since COVID. And I got dropped by my record label during that time as well. So it's been like a very kind of slow rebuild. I sort of rebuilt a team around me, and then that ended up falling through recently. So now I'm rebuilding again. And um, luckily, I still have an awesome booking agent, WME, and they're pitching me for some fall and winter tours. So I'm ready for that, whatever opportunities come my way. As far as playing shows, I'm always down to play, but I personally have been focusing on just finding a manager. If anyone hears this and they're like, "Oh, I know a manager that would be great for you," just don't hesitate to send me a message. I'm all ears and just rebuilding. So, but I can't wait. That said, sorry, I'm like long-winded, but I can't wait to rebuild a team because I think, my favorite project to date in my pocket, and I just really want to share it with the world, but I want it to be properly spread into the world. I want to have a team that's helping me like get it to radio and all of those things that you get with a label. And so I'm waiting until I have that until I release it. But I think you'll be pleased. It's more like unique to me and my voice and my sound than anything I've ever made. So
Excellent. It sounds great.
yeah, we'll have to talk again for sure when I release that.
Yes, absolutely. I'll leave you just with a couple things here. Here's my toughest question here is 3 artists to discover. What are 3 artists you could tell me that people need to discover?
That people need to discover.
Artists, bands.
Okay. Well, I just love songwriting, and so I'll probably point back to some more like old school artists because I think songwriting. I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of great songwriters. I mean, I know there's a lot of great songwriters currently, but I look back and I'll point to, let's say, Townes Van Zandt. If you haven't delved into his career, he's a fantastic songwriter. So I'll say Townes Van Zandt. I'm going to say Merle Haggard because I think he's one of the best country artists of all time and songwriters. And trying to think if I could give an artist's name. Let's say this is a hard question because now I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to.
That was a tough one.
Oh, Townes Van Zandt, Merle Haggard.
2 works if you can't think of one.
Well,
I'm trying to think of who you toured with social. Oh, you toured with Aaron Lee Tazian.
yeah, and he's great. And I recently toured with Joshua Ray Walker. He's great. Lucero, if you haven't listened to Lucero, they're just unsung heroes. They're so good. And yeah, Lucero, I will say.
Perfect. We'll write those down and get that name out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Obviously, it's the debut episode. I am more than thrilled that you came on, with me being an actual fan, and being able to talk to you about your music is just, it's great. I'm sure we could probably go on for hours about the Wilderness album, which I will tell you right now, my Spotify 2023 top 100 songs, you occupied 15 spaces.
Wow.
And every one of them off Wilderness, and then there was a couple off Gilded as well. So,
well, that's awesome, and I love that you have the song "Loneliness." That's one of my favorite ones that I've written too. So I really appreciate it.
And for anyone watching, "Loneliness," check out the YouTube. It's on YouTube, but it's Jade just solo acoustic on it, and it's phenomenal. Anyone watching that knows me, just check out my band page because my band page shared it about a year ago. So I think it was a year ago.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry I'm not using the whole camera thing. I thought this was, when I think podcast, I think of like listening to it in my earbuds. So I didn't think that like a live thing. But next time we talk, I'll make sure to put some makeup on and pop on.
we will talk after your newest project comes out, and
Yes.
obviously I'm excited to hear it. Everyone's gonna be excited to hear it. So I
Yeah.
will leave you with that. I once again I appreciate you coming on,
Okay.
and looking forward to everything that's coming up in the future for you as well.
Okay. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Okay, and talk to you later.